Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another video. This video is going to be for Gemini of 2025. In this video, I'm going to take you through the major transits that you're going to experience next year. I'm part of the Gemini Rising Club too, so I'm looking forward to exploring this with you as well. Before I get into that, the rest of this video next month being November 2024, on the 23rd, I'm going to be offering a one-day workshop here in Brisbane, and we're going to be discussing all the astrology of 2025. It's a massive year next year, so much change. So if you are in Brisbane or you can get to Brisbane, I would love to see you and chew the astro fat of 2025 with you. It's going to be held in beautiful Bulimba, one day together in a small group and hopefully maybe some dinner and drinks afterwards. So if you can join us, I'll pop a link in the description box below. You can check out all the details. If you can make it happen, I'll be there and really looking forward to exploring 2025 with you. So let's share the screen. To be honest with you, I really do like the configurations for Gemini of 2025. As far as this outer planet energy is concerned, I think we got it pretty good. Probably the biggest mover and shaker is Uranus coming into the first house. This is a big preview of a 7-year cycle that's going to start from July 7 through to November 8. So Uranus basically dips the toes in Gemini in 2025, and it's going to start really shaking up life for you. This preview period of a 7-year cycle is asking you to take a what's the phrase? No holds barred approach to life. Uranus in the first is very much a come at me, bro transit and has the capacity or provides the right conditions to really dramatically reshape your life. So it is a little bit of a strap yourself in transit because everything is going to start changing. Uh, and that's a very stark contrast from Uranus in Taurus for the past 7 years. So between July and November of 2025, you're being invited to really start to practice the idea of saying yes to anything that looks new, exciting, and different. Let's be fair, Gemini rising doesn't generally have too much trouble in doing that. But it's also going to prompt you to say no to anything that pulls on your leash, holds you back from freedom, or holds you back from being your authentic self. Because a big part of 2025 for Gemini risings is about experimentation, trying on things for size, proverbially speaking. Anything that's new, different, unique, which I've already mentioned, is going to kind of taunt and tantalize you a little bit. It's going to be so exciting. You're going to want to grasp all the new opportunities that Uranus is going to bring kind of yesterday, right? But then as Uranus moves back into Taurus for a little bit, it's going to encourage you to tie off some loose ends in other areas of life. So there is this sort of this threshold that gets crossed for Gemini rising next year. So a lot of excitement, but then having to fix up stuff. And it's the 12th house stuff. So it might be some of the self-talk, the fears, the deep fear of change, getting used to maybe being comfortable in some areas, and Uranus just comes along and sort of changes everything. So there is going to be this wanting to change everything, but also having to be cautious of not biting off more than you can proverbially chew. So Uranus in Gemini is really going to ask you to take positive action for personal progress. So whether that is you individually or just seeing, your whole life through a whole new lens. And when you start to change as an individual, that's when everything else changes for you. So we may want change in relationship. You might want change in career. You might want change in finances. All those things are well and good, but they're not going to happen until you decide. It always starts with you and your relationship with whatever higher power you choose to work with. So you're going to be, it's encouraged to think different. It's Uranus in Gemini. So whatever your thought processes are, whatever your self-beliefs are, beliefs about life, beliefs about yourself, beliefs about everything, you're going to have to change that. And fortunately, Jupiter in Gemini is kind of doing that for us right now. But Uranus is about taking a risk. Okay, so that's going to be a big one. Now, in order to do that, the catch here with Gemini is not wanting to see what other options are available before deciding, needing more information, or trying to do all the things and then end up not doing anything at all. So, and that in of itself can be a form of procrastination. So Gemini risings are just going to have to delete that, because sometimes the biggest risk is to take no risk at all. And so Uranus is all about that. So it's a very, very exciting time to be a Gemini rising. Now, that all that being said, we have Jupiter in Gemini now. So it moved in back in May 2024, and it's going to be there until June 10. So we've got half of 2025 with Jupiter continuing to prime the territory, and then Uranus comes in almost exactly a month later, less than. So there's a method in this madness. And I think now for Gemini risings, it's the time to be exploring new possibilities. And that can be physical, that can be metaphorical, that can be learning new things as well. Jupiter and Gemini is helping you expand your perspective. So if you've got this sort of limited focus, that sort of mercurial, detailed orientation, Jupiter is asking you to kind of get out of that box and think a little bit differently. It can be too much. I have Jupiter in Gemini on my ascendant natally, so I'm used to this too muchness. So for those who don't, and I'm sure most of you don't, Jupiter in Gemini has probably felt like a lot. So a lot of options, a lot of possibilities, but also gaining a lot of wisdom. So even if it feels all too much at the minute, I feel that the information, the perspective expansion, the new paradigms, the new perspectives are actually going to help you to make wiser choices and wiser changes as Uranus comes in. Because remember that Jupiter is a very spiritual planet, it's a very wise planet, it's also kind of religious and spiritual and sort of, you know, old white man with a beard, sort of priestly rabbi type of guy, right? So the wisdom that you're gaining, the perspective that you're gaining, the insights that you're gaining, it may not seem like there's a method in that madness now, but I think it will once Uranus gets there. So use this transit, use Jupiter in Gemini to gain the wisdom that you need. Keep in mind that Jupiter will rule your seventh, so this might be through relationship, personal or professional, because Pisces rules the 10th. So you might need to be getting relationship advice, career advice, or just the wisdom of other people can be what is expanding your landscape, so to speak. So Jupiter in Gemini, I feel, does serve a higher purpose as opposed to just the madness that some people are reporting from it. So another exciting prospect for Gemini risings in 2025, also into 2026, is Jupiter in Cancer. So money is going to look great, but probably not so much until the second half of the year. So I'm recording this video in October of 2024. We have Mars in Cancer now, and Mars is going to be in Cancer for an extended period of time. So what this cycle is going to be bringing up is, do you need or do you want change in your financial status? So if that's a goal for you, if that's something you're motivated to pursue, Mars in Cancer is going to ask you to act now, get the job done, to tackle those challenges that might be emotional, that might be hard, that might be habitual for you, that you're not, whatever your habits are around money. They tend to stem from an emotional standpoint when you have the moon ruling the second in particular. So Mars in Cancer is going to ask you to tackle those less than ideal money habits. So for some Gemini risings with Cancer on the second, some of us might be spending too much, burning through money, Mars in Cancer. Maybe some others are really frugal with their cash and they need to learn to spend more. So you could be spending too much, spending too little. But again, it's the emotional cues you're looking for with Mars in Cancer. So we'll all have the moon in a different position in our birth chart, and that might be what you need to be looking into for more advice around that. Now, so you've got till now, obviously, early November 2024 and into December, we'll have Mars will go into Leo for a bit. But then very, very early January 2025, Mars will come back into Cancer. And then you'll have till the end of February to do the work, tackle those things you would rather avoid or procrastinate about. So if you can do that now, sort of October through till February, make a plan, stick to it, take action on it, have some motivation, even if you don't want to, you will be rewarded once Jupiter moves into Cancer, June 10. So that will be a year-long cycle that happens just once every 12 years. Now, Jupiter in Cancer on paper is probably the best transit anyone can have with their money. Jupiter happens to us all in the second house once every 12 years, but in Cancer, Jupiter is exalted. So it has a lot of potential here to really deliver those Jupiter goods. You might like to think back to 2013, 2014, and how your money situation shifted during that period. For all intents and purposes, that's what we can expect this time around. So think about what occurred then. You can expect a cycle where you can start thinking big around money. Whatever Jupiter touches, it tends to expand. So what do you desire when it comes to abundance, support, sustenance? Now, this cycle doesn't last forever. We get really excited about these good Jupiter transits. And, it's sort of this, when the times are going good, you never think they're going to end, right? But it's also important to remember that Jupiter won't stay in Cancer forever. So if you are getting a little bit of extra income, maybe you're in a better financial position than you thought. Cancer in of itself is very protective. It can be a little frugal. So you might want to siphon a little bit of cash for a rainy day with Jupiter and Cancer as well. Now, the home life is going to start to look a little bit different in 2025, and that is because in January, the south node of the moon will move into Virgo, and it'll stay there for 18 months. And so this is going to churn up your domestic life. Okay, so this will help you. The south node is going to churn up and rearrange things so you can get closer to the domestic situation, the living situation that you really want. Okay, so this might mean having to let go of a lot of things, rearrange a lot of things, and also from some perspective shifts. Mercury rules your fourth, also rules your first. All right. So wherever the nodes go, eclipses follow. So there's 2 eclipses happening in your 4th house of home and family in 2025. The first one is in March, and that's a full moon or a lunar eclipse. Now, emotions can run high under a lunar eclipse, so you can expect as the full moon spotlights your 4th with the south node, there's going to be some drama, some upset family dynamics, and you might have to let go of the past with something. And you do hear this all the time with full moons and south nodes. Oh, just surrender, just let it go. And I mean, we'd have to be letting go of everything, right? If we listen to most people out there. But we have to let go of things with wisdom. That's the key difference here, right? So as this happens, you've still got Jupiter and Gemini in your first house. So we don't just want to cut noses off to spite faces here. We also want to let something go or surrender, but with the wisdom. Surrender isn't just about giving up, cutting off, letting go. It's about letting go, letting God, as some people might say. It's about I'm going to let this go and have the wisdom that it's going to work out the way that I want. One personal adage I try and live by in many areas of my life: if it's not in my hands, it's not on my mind. So that's the surrendering piece, that letting go. So that might be helpful in March. And this can also be the full moon, can be a really great time if you just want to, even just the node in general being activated by the eclipse. If you need a real good declutter, a clean out, a purging of stuff around the home, and that can also be energetic. So some people might find it helpful to clear out memorabilia that they've collected from the past, or paraphernalia from past situations, relationships, or people. There comes a time in your life where do you really need to be keeping the things that you still owned when you were 18 if you're in your 40s or your 50s or what have you now? So obviously some things are sentimental and what have you, but this might be a really great time to let stuff go so you can make room for the things that you really want. And that's the purpose of the South Node. Yes, it's uh, purging and purifying, and it's usually associated with loss. But that's the cycle of life. That's, you can't have losses in the stock market. The losses in the stock market, there's always a gain. You lose a relationship, you gain a new one. That's just the way the world works. And so there's going to be one area of life in 2025 where it is going to be a little bit about loss, a little bit of endings, perhaps, purging, the purifying, so things can get better in time. So September, South Node, a solar eclipse, so be a new moon. That's sort of the funny solar eclipse each year where you get the new beginnings combined with the endings of the South Node. So that might be just one last purge, one last purification, to really help you figure out, what's going on in the home zone there. Keep in mind, though, even though the South Node is in the fourth, the North Node is in the 10th. So there just may be less focus on home and more hunger or more desire for ambition, achievement, more energy, more gain to be had in the public eye or in the professional sphere in 2025. Now, relationships for Geminis. One thing that's really interesting about the setup for the Geminis in 2025 is that your relationship planet, which is, well, it's Sagittarius on the 7th, so it's Jupiter, is in the first. 10th house ruler, if your MC is in Pisces as well, 10th house Pisces, the ruler of the MC is also in the first. So thus, the support, the love, the partnership, the collaboration, the relationship, all of that stuff, whether it's in the personal, professional, or both, it all begins with you. So you become this bigger, larger than life magnet for the things that you need or want in your life in 2025. Sort of starting now, okay, because we've already got Jupiter there. So it's about expanding your horizons, taking in other people's perspectives, learning more things, expanding professionally, doing things that may be a little bit out of your comfort zone or a little bit different to what you might normally do. So professional relationships might be the area of growth for you in 2025. And that could be where that potential excitement or newness comes from. Usually on paper, we would see Jupiter moving through the 7th being the relationship signature, but time and time again, working with clients, I see it's when Jupiter comes into the seventh, into the first, and that's when you are ready because you're ready to have your being expanded in a way, bringing in someone new, new ideas, new perspectives, and things like that. So you will get some activations to the seventh, however, in 2025, and that's Mars. So Mars only comes there every couple of years. So Mars from November 4 to 15th of December is going to sort of raise the bar in terms of enthusiasm in relationships, passion, energy, that sort of thing. Mars in Sagittarius is that real throw caution to the wind a little bit. So whether you're partnered or you're single, this is your time to really sort of arouse your desires and chase them. So if you're single, that's obviously kind of obvious. If you're partnered, this can be the time where you really need to add the spark back into a relationship, or just add that little bit of fire. As a Gemini rising, having fire on the descendant, you need inspiration. You need that to be able to look up to a partner and be sort of motivated and inspired by them. So Mars can really add a little bit of flavor in that department. You might also choose to be more assertive in the relationship, that take the lead, organize things, get things happening. But it's going to be a nice little zing to things, particularly because Mars will also oppose Uranus during that transit. I think we just do catch that Mars opposite Uranus. Yes, just by a couple of days. So it does fit in. But also Mercury, your ruling planet, will have two phases through Sagittarius in 2025. So you get an extra long visit. From the 29th, Mercury will go in. This is going to be ideal for discussions, communication, getting aligned, having those conversations. And the dynamic might shift around relationships during this time, particularly if you're in an existing relationship, because Mercury will oppose Uranus in your first house upon its arrival. So, that could upset the apple cart somewhat because you're still getting used to what Uranus is all about. So, if you're changing, conversations may need to be had. Now, because of the way the Mercury retrograde works next year, you only get a little bit of it in your relationship zone from the 10th to the 19th. This might be your be careful, because don't say something in the heat of the moment, because you will get a Mars Mercury conjunction during that period of time. So I would advise take your cues from Mercury because that's your ruler. It's retrograde. Go slow, take your time, gather more information rather than shooting your mouth off with Mars and maybe landing yourself in a little hot water there. But from December 12 to January 1st, you can expect to get back to regular programming in terms of relationships then. So Mercury retrogrades as a Gemini rising will be something to note for you, particularly when they hit the more relationship-based houses where you can run into confusion with other people. Now, another big hitter for Gemini rising. So Gemini is one of those the sort of house landscapes where these outer planetary sextiles, the outer planets in 2025, 26, 27, like we have a few years of them, they kind of hit good houses in the birth chart. So a lot is going to change for Gemini risings, but I feel it's going to be more positive changes. You're changing, the places you go, the spirituality, the things you're studying really deepen and ripen. But also, too, we've got this dynamic here, Saturn and Neptune. So friends are going to be an interesting dynamic next year and moving forward. So we get two preview cycles of longer cycles next year. First, Saturn I'm starting with Saturn, but it's actually Neptune that goes in first. But Saturn is going to be more of the sort of acute influence compared to the longer cycle of Neptune. So from 25th of May to September 1, Saturn's going to dip his toes in the 10th. This is going to ask you to start working or start aligning yourself intentionally with those who fan your flames. You have fire in your friendships, having Aries on the 11th. So this is being perhaps a little bit more strategic and tactical about the company you keep, rather than just kind of, winging it willy-nilly, Aries on the 11th. So whether it's your personal friendships, whether it's your professional relationships, seek those out who fan your flames, okay? You know what they say, the 5 people you spend the most time with will really influence your life. So Saturn here, you want to commit to those things. You want to take those things more seriously. If you've got friends in your life that, you're hanging out with, but they're kind of going nowhere, well, you'll go nowhere with them. So that's something to keep in mind. So you want to keep that in mind. If you have already been starting to actively, or you're already loyal, you're already disciplined, you're already a stable person when it comes to friendships, Saturn's going to come along and reward you for those alignments and the effort that you've made in a friendship group or with an individual friend or even within a group, community, charity organization, or things like that. Now, Saturn here is going to say slow down your friendships a little bit as well. Going slow is not going to hurt. And that's going to help you also take your rightful place in the center. Saturn has got this enduring quality, and that means that you've got to also be that person as well. So you might want to step up into a leadership role in a certain group, community, or friendship circle. Maybe you'll take on greater responsibilities. You might be the person that people lean into, that rock type of energy there with other people. So in short, this year, or at least in 2025, between May and September, this is a little bit less about you being sort of flexible, adaptable, go with the flow, which is your usual kind of way of being with Gemini rising. This is more about deciding and doing, and prove that you're reliable. Give yourself the opportunity to allow others to prove their reliability to you. So really, it's kind of no flaky people in 2025. Saturn can also bring a quality control energy into friendships. So you might find some of those who have stood the test of time will really solidify their place with you in 2025. Conversely, you might also realize that there's just some people you're outgrowing. In case Uranus in your first, chances are that's possible. And you might, some friendships, groups, people within your sphere just may reach their use by date in 2025. But you'll start to suss that out then. You'll get a bit of a taste tester as to what you're going to be dealing with for Saturn's 2.5 year cycle. 2025 also brings a new influence into your 11th house, which is very contradictory to Saturn. So 30 March to October 22, you'll get another preview of a 14-year cycle, and that one's Neptune in Aries. Very, very different vibe here. So Saturn's going to attempt to implement limits, discipline, reliability, dependability, and Neptune's going to try and diffuse all of that. So that's going to be something that's going to feel probably a little bit confusing next year, particularly in July and August. While Saturn and Neptune don't officially conjoin, they get within 17 minutes of each other. So I'm calling that a conjunction. It's pretty close, right? So you are going to feel, on the one hand, there might be trying to have some restrictions or limits or boundaries with others, but then there's others that just seem to erode all of those. Okay. So it's going to be important for you in 2025 to maybe having to tighten the boundaries in some areas so you can increase compassion and care for those who are a priority to you. So you can't be everything to everyone, or you end up being nothing to no one. So having to straddle that boundary, you might really commit to a spiritual group or a spiritual community, or even sort of religious community with Neptune. So you're going to want to find people who are spiritually aligned with you and commit to that. So as you're changing, growing with Uranus in the first, you might need to sort of level up in the company you keep as well. So it's an exciting time to be a Gemini rising. I hope this has given you some insight and help around some of the major hit points in 2025 for you. And I look forward to hearing about your comments about these transits and what houses they're activating. Are some of these influences even showing up for you now? Are you starting to feel it already? Are there already happenings already? And of course, if you would like to explore your own personal birth chart in a deeper way, readings for astrology of 2025 are also available as well. So I look forward to seeing you again in the next video here on YouTube.